Let's be honest for a second, just you and me. Have you ever had that friend, or that one friend, who seemed to root for you but not too much? You know exactly what I mean. They show up when you're down, when you break up, when you lose your job, when life hits you in the stomach. They're the first one there with comfort, advice, the "I'm here for you" energy. They're incredible at consoling you in failure. But when you win, when you get promoted, when you start a great relationship, when you finally buy that car or take that trip you dreamed about, you notice something strange in their eyes. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. A compliment that lands like a scratch. There's a very specific kind of sentence that sounds caring, but leaves a sting. It arrives with a smile and a hidden but. And the but is the pin. You share a victory, and they respond with a disaster forecast. You travel, and they remind you of the worst part. You lose weight, and they say you must be obsessed. You improve your life, and they ask if you're getting full of yourself. And here's the clever part. If you confront them, they have the perfect defense. "I'm just saying it for your own good. I'm just being realistic. I just don't want you to get hurt." That's the trick. Rivalry almost never shows up as a direct attack. It shows up as performative care. And that's why it confuses you, because it's wrapped in something that looks like love. Wow, that promotion is amazing. But you'll have less time to actually live now, right? That car is incredible, but they say maintenance is a nightmare. It's subtle, almost invisible, but you feel it. There's a quiet competition running underneath the friendship. A cold war where nobody fires weapons, but both sides keep checking the scoreboard. Before I show you why this happens, do one quick thing for me. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, your city and your country. I want you to see you're not alone. There are a lot of people living inside this same silent war, right there on the other side of the screen. Now, here's the part that hurts more, because it isn't about them, it's about you. Sometimes you love your friend, truly, and still, a small part of you doesn't celebrate at 100%. It's that half-second delay before the smile, that tiny, almost shameful sensation you try to kill immediately, like your soul stumbled for a moment. You didn't plan to feel it, you don't want to feel it, but your body betrays you. A tightness, a pinch, a thought that cuts across your mind. Okay, and what about me? And then you punish yourself for even thinking it. You try to fix the feeling by force, but feelings don't follow orders. They follow structure. Admitting this hurts. Admitting we feel a sting when our best friend succeeds feels like taboo. We feel like monsters. I should be happy for them. What kind of person am I? You're not a monster. You're human. And what you're feeling has a name, a pattern, and a psychological explanation that has been mapped by some of the sharpest minds of the last century. Here's why it hurts more when it comes from a friend than from a stranger. Because we don't measure ourselves against untouchable people. We measure ourselves against people who feel close enough to be a mirror. You don't compare yourself to a billionaire on the other side of the planet the same way you compare yourself to the classmate who used to sit next to you. Because the classmate becomes a living question. If they could do it, why didn't I? And when you don't have an answer, that question turns into poison. It becomes judgment. It becomes resentment. And worst of all, Lina, it disguises itself as an opinion about the other person. Today, we're going to talk about why the people closest to us are often our most dangerous rivals. Why it's easier to love humanity from a distance than to love your neighbor who just upgraded their life. Welcome to the anatomy of secret rivalry. Now let's go deeper. Because once you see the machine, you stop blaming yourself for being evil, and you start understanding what's actually happening. René Girard discovered something disturbing about the human mind. He argued that we don't always know what to want. We don't always create original desires. We learn desire by watching other people. We call it inspiration or admiration. You see your friend obsessed with fitness, and suddenly you want to work out. You see your friend in a stable relationship, and suddenly your single life feels empty. So far, normal. Imitation is how we learn. But Girard divides this imitation into two types, and the difference between them is the difference between peace and hell. The first type is external mediation. You imitate someone far away, a celebrity, an athlete, a public figure, a character in a movie. They live in a different world. You can admire them without conflict because you're not in direct competition with them. You're not competing with a billionaire for a job interview. You're not competing with a movie star for the same social circle. They're like gods on a mountain. You can worship them without pain. But notice what happens when the model is close. When you see a famous athlete, you think, incredible. When you see your friend getting stronger, you think, why am I not doing anything? When you see a famous author publish, you think, one day I'll get there. When you see your friend publish, you think, I could have done that too. The distant model inspires you. The close model pressures you. Because the close model isn't only a reference, it's a mirror. And a mirror doesn't praise you. A mirror exposes you. Now we enter the real danger zone. Internal mediation. That's when the model is right beside you. Your colleague, your sibling, your neighbor, your best friend. Here's where the human brain short-circuits. If I admire my friend, I want to be like them. I copy their tastes. I copy their ambitions. I copy the shape of what they believe a good life looks like. If my friend wants to become a successful lawyer, suddenly law becomes the path to happiness. We begin to desire the same things. But the world is finite. Jobs are limited. Attention is limited. Status is limited. Recognition is limited. If we both desire the same scarce thing, we stop being friends and we become rivals. And here's the tragedy. We become rivals because we admire each other. Competition is not born from hate. It's born from excessive love of the other person as a model. You value your friend's desire so much that if they want it, it must be valuable, so you want it too. And suddenly you're competing over who's smarter, who earns more, who's happier, who's winning. That's the paradox of proximity. The closer we are, the more brutal the competition can become. Now let's talk about why similarity hurts. Freud had a term for this, the narcissism of small differences. Most people don't envy a queen. Most people don't envy a billionaire. The distance is too large. They don't feel like real competitors, but you might envy your old classmate who built a business and got rich. Why? Because they are proof you could have done it. Same age, same background, similar opportunities. Their success becomes a personal insult to your failure. In friendship, this turns into what Girard calls the mimetic double. You become copies of each other. Same jokes, same slang, same tastes, same worldview, almost identical. And that's exactly why you compete. Each person becomes obsessed with proving they're the original, and the other is the copy. He only started going to the gym because I did. She bought that because she saw I was looking at it. You become obsessed with protecting your identity from the friend's identity, and that creates constant tension. You start monitoring the other person. Your friend's Instagram stops being a social app. It becomes a scoreboard. But it's not only online. It happens live in groups in the weirdest ways. At a dinner, someone shares good news. And someone always balances the room with a joke. Not cruel enough to start a fight, just cruel enough to reduce the glow. Or there's a silence. That short silence after someone announces something great. Then the group moves on too fast, like celebrating is dangerous. And you realize something. Some people can support you when you suffer because it doesn't threaten them. But supporting you when you grow requires something rare, emotional maturity. Because celebrating someone means accepting you are not the center of the scoreboard. And for many people, that feels unbearable. Now here's the darkest secret nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes we keep friends close not because we enjoy them, but because we need them to measure ourselves. They become our ruler. If I'm a little better than them, I feel safe. If they pass me, I enter an existential crisis. It sounds horrible. It sounds like something only a psychopath would do, but it's not psychopathy. It's mimetic desire. It's the default software of the human brain running without supervision. And once you understand that, the question changes. It stops being who's the bad person, and it becomes what do we do with this energy? Because society doesn't allow you to punch your friend because they got promoted. That would be barbaric. So we develop more sophisticated weapons, psychological weapons. They're clean, they leave no visible bruises, and that's why they're dangerous. Let me show you 3 classic patterns. First, humiliation disguised as humor. They compliment you, then add a joke that puts you back in your place. Not enough to be openly cruel, just enough to reduce you. Second, concern that cuts your wings. You share a bold plan, and your friend becomes a risk consultant. They list every danger, every worst-case scenario, every reason you might fail. And when you feel uncertain, they say, "See, I'm just protecting you." But sometimes they're protecting you from surpassing them. Third, selective support. They support things that don't make you grow too much. They encourage your hobbies, but disappear when you start becoming serious, when you start transforming. Because hobbies don't compete, transformation competes. And then friendship turns into this, a place where you can be loved, as long as you don't change too much. Now here's what most people miss. Secret rivalry doesn't only distort how you feel about your friend, it distorts how you behave around them. It quietly rewires your personality. You start editing yourself, you start shrinking, you start hiding wins the same way you would hide a forbidden desire. You hesitate to share good news, not because you're humble, but because you can already hear the "but" coming. So you soften the victory before anyone else can. You announce your success with a self-insult attached. "Yeah, I got the promotion, but honestly, it's probably going to be stressful. Yeah, I lost weight, but I'm still not where I should be. Yeah, my relationship is good, but, nothing lasts." That's not humility. That's preemptive self-defense. You're trying to remove the sharp edges of your happiness so nobody can stab it. And the weirdest part is, you don't even notice you're doing it. You call it being realistic, you call it being grounded, but it's often fear. Fear of being resented, fear of being punished, fear of triggering competition. And if you grow up in a group where success creates tension, your brain learns a brutal rule. Don't shine too bright, because light attracts envy. So you dim yourself to survive the room. And that's one of the saddest trade-offs in adult friendship. You can either be fully alive or you can be fully accepted. And many people choose acceptance. They choose it without realizing they're paying with their own expansion. Now look at what happens on the other side. When your friend grows and it stings you, you also start performing a role. You become the balanced one, the realist, the honest friend. You bring a little rain to their sunshine, not because you hate them, but because their light makes your shadow visible. So you try to reduce the light. And you do it with the tools that keep you socially safe. You do it with jokes. You do it with warnings. You do it with concern. You do it with the tone of someone who loves them. And that's why this pattern is so hard to detect, because it doesn't look like violence, it looks like friendship, but it still kills something. It kills momentum. It kills courage. It kills the fragile moment where someone dares to believe in themselves. And if you've ever had a dream die right after you told a certain person about it, you already understand what I'm saying. Sometimes your enemy isn't hatred. Sometimes your enemy is a friend's anxiety disguised as advice. Now we have a German word that describes one of the ugliest side effects of this rivalry: Schadenfreude, the secret joy at someone else's misfortune. Your perfect friend tells you their relationship ended. You make the sad face. You say, "I'm so sorry," but deep inside, a tiny flame of relief lights up. Good. Their life isn't perfect. I'm not that far behind. That relief is your ego breathing again. It's your ego stopping itself from drowning in comparison. And then it gets worse, because when mimetic rivalry gets hot, we start sabotaging the friend. And the scariest part is that we often do it while believing we're helping. It's that overly prudent advice. Are you really going to quit your job and start a business? The market is terrible. I'm just worried about you. Is it concern, or is it fear that if they succeed, you'll feel stuck? It's the compliment with poison. Wow, you lost weight. You look like you've been resting. You don't even look like you work that hard. Translation: you're shallow or lazy. Girard said the model becomes the obstacle. Your friend blocks your vision of yourself as special. And until you solve that, you become a terrible friend. A friend enemy, a frenemy. You'll stand beside them in failure, but vanish in their success. Now, what's the exit? Because if the diagnosis is brutal, the solution has to be real, not motivational, not fake positivity, real. René Girard didn't write this to depress you. He wrote it to liberate you. There is a way out of the mimetic labyrinth, but it requires a kind of courage most people don't have. Here are 3 steps that can save your friendships and your sanity. First, name the monster. Envy only works in the dark. It needs you to lie to yourself and call it justice or concern. The moment you feel that sting when the other person succeeds, stop and say, "I'm not angry at them. I'm envious because they are my model and they achieved something I wanted." When you admit that, something changes. The tension drops. You stop blaming them for your pain. You take responsibility for your desire. And here's a powerful reframing. Envy is not evil. Envy is information. It's a signal pointing at a desire you haven't owned yet. If you envy their discipline, you want discipline. If you envy their relationship, you want love. If you envy their courage, you want courage. The problem isn't the envy. The problem is the shame that forces envy to become sabotage. And there's another layer. Sometimes envy is not telling you what you want. Sometimes envy is telling you what you've been refusing to become. Because the friend you envy often represents a version of you that you betrayed. Not because you're weak, but because life trained you to be safe. So the envy burns because it touches an old wound, a promise you didn't keep, a path you abandoned, a standard you lowered. And when your friend succeeds, they unknowingly press on that scar. That's why the emotion is so intense. It isn't really about them. It's about the life you think you should have lived. And once you see that, you gain power. Because now you can stop wasting energy trying to lower them and start using energy to raise yourself. Second, create a safety distance. Sometimes the rivalry is too hot. You're both competing for the same space, the same oxygen. Step back, not to punish them, to breathe. Distance is not cruelty. Distance is hygiene. You're not saying, I'm better than you. You're saying, I need to step out of this mirror. Because when rivalry is hot, everything becomes interpretation. A story post becomes provocation. A like becomes a competition. A win becomes an attack. Safety distance is removing wood from a fire nobody wants to admit exists. And sometimes it's only after a pause that the friendship gets room to become friendship again. Stop checking their social media for a month. Stop asking for details. Recover your autonomy. Listen to your own voice again without the interference of their desire. And one more thing. Distance also protects the friendship from becoming a courtroom. Because when you're too close to the scoreboard, every conversation turns into evidence. Evidence of who's ahead. Evidence of who's falling behind. Evidence of who is more. Distance breaks that spell. It reminds your nervous system that you are not competing for oxygen. Third, change the game. This is the most important one. We compete because we play zero-sum games. If there's only one manager role and they win, I lose. If there's only one prize and they win, I lose. So change the arena. Seek things that aren't scarce. If I become wiser, that doesn't stop you from becoming wiser. If I become kinder, that doesn't steal kindness from you. Creative, intellectual, spiritual growth is an infinite game. The more you have, the more you can share. Build friendships around creating things together, not consuming things together. When the focus shifts from having status to being stronger, the competition dies and real admiration returns. And here's a concrete way to do that. Stop bonding only through commentary. Stop bonding only through gossip. Stop bonding only through shared complaints. Those bonds are easy, but they quietly train rivalry, because complaining becomes a competition too. Who suffers more? Who is more tired? Who has it harder? Instead, bond through building. Create something together. Train together. Study together. Write together. Start a project together. When two people are building, the question is no longer, who's ahead? The question becomes, what are we making? And when you share a mission, the friend becomes an ally again, not a mirror. Now let's close with the hardest part. I'm going to challenge you to do something today. Think of the friend you secretly compete with, the one whose success irritates you. Send them a message, not a generic message, a sincere compliment about exactly what you envy. If you envy their discipline, say, I really admire your discipline, it's inspiring. Here's what will happen. You will feel physical resistance. Your ego will scream, don't do it. You're lowering yourself. Do it anyway. That act is what Girard would call a renunciation of violence. You are putting down the weapons. You are telling your brain, they are not my rival. They are my partner. By celebrating their success, you hack the system. You turn envy into fuel. You turn poison into medicine. The world already has too many competitors, too many judges. Be the rare person who can look at someone else's light without feeling your own light shrink. And here's a simple test that almost nobody uses, but should. The test isn't who supports you when you fall. The test is who doesn't change when you grow. Comforting someone is socially easy. Celebrating someone requires internal security. If you notice your joy shrinking around certain people, that's not drama, that's information. And if the success of others hurts you, that's not evil. That's a desire inside you asking to be named. Mature friendship is when the other person's success doesn't become a threat. It becomes a direction, because their light doesn't extinguish yours. It just helps illuminate the path you're both walking. And remember, your friend is your mirror. If you don't like what you see in them, it might be time to clean your own face.